Hello, fellow heirs, and welcome back to Weekday Wind Down with the Word, where we are reading through the book of Leviticus. And today we will be reading chapter 14, part B, in the NLT version. So without further delay, let's start reading. The second part of chapter 14 includes the treatment of contaminated houses. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When you arrive in Canaan, the land I am giving you as your own possession, I may contaminate some of the houses in your land with mildew. The owner of such a house must then go to the priest and say, 'It appears that my house has some kind of mildew.' Before the priest goes in to inspect the house, he must have the house empty so nothing inside it will be pronounced ceremonially unclean. Then the priest will go in and examine the mildew on the walls. If he finds greenish or reddish streaks and the contamination appears to go deeper than a wall surface, the priest will step outside the door and put the house in quarantine for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must return for another inspection. If he finds that the mildew on the walls of the house has spread, the priest must order the stones from those areas to be removed. The contaminated material will then be taken outside the town to an area designated as ceremonially unclean. Next, the inside walls of the entire house must be scraped thoroughly and the scrapings dumped in the unclean place outside the town. Other stones will be brought in to replace those ones that were removed, and the walls will be replastered. But if the mildew reappears after the stones have been replaced and the house has been scraped and replastered, the priest must return and inspect the house again. If he finds that the mildew has spread, the walls are clearly contaminated with a serious mildew, and the house is defiled. It must be torn down, and all the stones, timbers, and plaster must be carried out of the town to the place designated as ceremonially unclean. Those who enter the house during the period of quarantine will be ceremonially unclean until evening, and all who sleep or eat in the house must wash their clothing. But if the priest returns for his inspection and finds that the mildew has not reappeared in the house after the fresh plastering, he will pronounce it clean because the mildew is clearly gone. To purify the house for the priest must take 2 birds, a stick of cedar, some scarlet yarn, and a hyssop branch. He will slaughter one of the birds over the clay pot filled with fresh water. He will take the cedar stick, the hyssop branch, the scarlet yarn, and the live bird, and dip them into the blood of the slaughtered bird and into the fresh water. Then he will sprinkle the house 7 times. When the priest has purified the house in exactly this way, he will release the live bird in the open fields outside the town. Through this process, the priest will purify the house and it will be ceremonially clean. These are the instructions for dealing with serious skin diseases, including scabby sores and mildew, whether on clothing or in a house, and a swelling on the skin, a rash, or discolored skin. This procedure will determine whether a person or object is ceremonially clean or unclean. These are the instructions regarding skin diseases and mildew. And that concludes the reading of the second part of Leviticus in the 14th chapter of the NLT version. Now, 2 things that stand out in my mind when reading this is that, again, is how God gives some practical ways of getting rid of or how to deal with a particular problem. In this case, is mildew. and he gives practical ways of how to deal with mildew in your house. He tells you what to look for, the color of the mildew, and what is dangerous when you have mildew in your house. And that's, mildew can be very dangerous and can cause people to get sick. So here again, God already knows what is very dangerous for us, and he gives us a warning. And it's funny because a lot of this stuff is not covered in the New Testament, but the Old Testament, but it still gives us a look into what's dangerous and what's not dangerous and how to handle certain things. And so I do like that about the Old Testament. God covers a lot of practical things in the Old Testament, and I do appreciate that. And another thing is that I was thinking about how they took the two birds and they sprinkled the blood. And I was just thinking about how I think that, even with people, witches today, how they have kind of taken some of this stuff from God when he, told the people of Israel to kill an animal and use the blood for this or that. And some people, such as so-called witches today, still use stuff like this. But we know that God's ways are the best ways. And sometimes they're using it, even though we don't have to do all this today, and the people of Israel don't have to do all this today. They're doing it from a darkness perspective, from a spiritual dark perspective, and not from a godly one. They're not doing it because God told them to do it like the children of Israel. God gave explicit instruction for them to use the blood of the animals to use in these ceremonies, and that was sometimes it was pleasing unto him when they did such things, or when they burnt things on the altar. It was pleasing to them, but now they have perverted these things today when they are doing these acts. They have perverted it because usually it is not for God. I would say probably 100% is not for God. And it's, they haven't consulted him on anything to do this. They're just doing it as a ritual, or like I said, it's from a place of darkness. And so if you are caught up in that, or you see people doing that, that's not of God. That's not of God. That is from a dark place, and you need to turn and run and go to Christ. And if you haven't accepted Christ as Lord and Savior, you need to accept Christ and pray to God to help you get away from that stuff, because some of that stuff can get rooted into people, and it's hard for them to get away from it because Satan don't want to lose them. Satan tries to hold on. I've heard several testimonies where these people are tormented in their dreams and tormented by these spirits and demons because they've been practicing witchcraft. So those are just some thoughts that I had that popped up in my mind as I was reading this. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts on chapter 14. Please put it in the comment section below so you can help others, and we can grow together. So once again, I thank you for listening to Weekday Wind Down with the Word, and have a blessed life.